Deho stood at the observation window of New Horizon Station and watched the stars. He had been a diplomat for 15 years now, and he still found peace in the silence of space. Behind him, the conference room buzzed with activity as delegates from 12 different species argued about mining rights in the outer belt. This was his life now. Talking, listening, finding solutions that made everyone happy enough to go home. He was good at it, maybe too good, his wife said during their last call. She missed him on Earth, missed the man who used to come home every night instead of living among the stars. The door slid open and Jiwoo walked in, her uniform crisp and perfect as always. She commanded the human defense fleet, though defense was really all it ever did. Her ships patrolled trade routes, escorted merchant vessels, and mostly just existed as a reminder that humanity took its commitments seriously. Another successful negotiation? Jiwoo asked, allowing herself a small smile. Deho nodded. The Kelson and the Porthos will split the asteroid field 60-40. Both sides think they won. Did they? They both kept their dignity and got resources they need. That's winning enough. Jiwoo looked out at the stars with him. Do you ever wonder if we're too good at this? At keeping the peace? Is there such a thing as being too good at peace? She didn't answer right away. Jiwoo had been in the military since she was 18, trained for war that never came. Her grandmother had fought in the resource wars back on Earth, back when humanity nearly destroyed itself over water and rare metals. Those days were over now. Humanity had learned its lesson, grown up, joined the wider galaxy as partners instead of conquerors. The Council loves us, Jiwoo finally said. They call us whenever someone needs a mediator. But I've been reading the old files, Deho. The sealed military archives from before we joined the Council. Do you know what other species say about our history? That we were barbaric, primitive, that we fought each other with nuclear weapons and chemical warfare. They say it like it's ancient history. Like we're completely different now, aren't we? Jiwoo turned to face him. My fleet trains every day. We run combat simulations, practice tactics, maintain weapons that haven't been fired in anger for over a century. Do you think we've forgotten how, or do you think we've just chosen not to? Before Deho could answer, his communication device chirped. It was Taemin calling from the research vessel Bright Future. The young scientist's face appeared on the screen, excited as always. Deho, you have to see this data. We've been studying the Vrin, that new species from the edge of the galaxy. Their biology is fascinating, but their behavior is strange. They haven't responded to any of our outreach attempts. Maybe they're just cautious, Deho suggested. For 6 months, every other species made contact within weeks of us finding them. The Vrin just ignore us, all of us. It's like we don't exist to them. Jiwoo leaned into the screen. Have they shown any hostile actions? Not yet. But they're expanding fast, Commander. Really fast. They've settled on 12 worlds in 6 months. That's not unusual for a growing civilization, Deho said, though he felt a small knot of worry in his stomach. I suppose, Taemin said, but he didn't sound convinced. I'll keep studying them. Maybe I can find a way to help us communicate. After the call ended, Deho and Jiwoo stood in silence. The conference room had finally emptied. The mining dispute settled for another day. Outside the window, a human patrol ship drifted past, its weapons dark and cold. When was the last time we fought a war? Jiwoo asked quietly. Earth's last major conflict ended in 2291, that's 556 years ago. And the Council thinks that means we've evolved beyond violence, haven't we? Jiwoo shook her head. We've evolved beyond starting violence. That's different. My grandmother used to tell me stories about the resource wars. She said the worst part wasn't the fighting. It was knowing that humans were capable of such organized destruction. We didn't just fight, Deho. We perfected fighting. We turned war into a science. And then we put it away, Deho said. We chose peace. Yes, we chose it. Choice is important. 3 weeks later, Deho received an urgent message from the Council. 3 colony worlds had gone silent. Not human worlds, but colonies belonging to the Feln, a species of peaceful traders who had never known war. Their last transmissions were garbled, full of panic and screaming. The Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from 40 species gathered in the Great Chamber, their voices echoing off the crystal walls. The Feln ambassador stood at the center, his forearms trembling. Please, he begged. Someone must investigate. Our people are gone. All communications are dead. We sent automated probes. They showed nothing but empty cities. Who could have done this? demanded the Krell ambassador, her scales flashing with agitation. No one had an answer. The galaxy had been at peace for so long that many species had forgotten what war even looked like. There were disputes, sure, and occasional conflicts, but nothing like this. Nothing that could make entire worlds go silent. "I'll go," Deho said, standing up. All eyes turned to him. "Send me to investigate. If someone is out there, if there's been a misunderstanding, I can help negotiate." "It could be dangerous," the council leader warned. "That's why you send a diplomat, to turn danger into dialogue." Jiwoo objected when she heard the plan, but Deho was insistent. This was what he did. This was what humanity did now. They talked, they listened, they found peaceful solutions. He boarded an unarmed diplomatic vessel with a small crew and set course for the last known location of the lost colonies. The trip took 4 days. As they approached the first world, Deho felt that knot in his stomach grow tighter. The planet looked dead from orbit. No lights, no signals, no life signs. They moved to the second world, then the third. All the same. Empty. Silent. And then the scanners picked up something else. Ships. Dozens of them, unlike any design in the Council database. They were angular and brutal, covered in weapons that looked more like art than tools of war. "Hail them," Deho ordered. Standard diplomatic greeting, all frequencies. They sent the message. They waited. The unknown ships adjusted their course, moving toward the diplomatic vessel in a formation that looked almost like a hunting pack. Still no response, his communications officer said, her voice tight with fear. The unknown ships opened fire without warning. No demands, no questions, no negotiation, just pure violence. Deho's vessel had no shields meant for combat, no weapons to fight back. They were diplomats, not soldiers. "Evacuate," Deho shouted as the ship shuddered around them. "Everyone to the escape pods now." He barely made it to his own pod before the diplomatic vessel exploded. Through the small window, he watched the unknown ships destroy every piece of debris large enough to be identified. They were thorough, professional. These weren't random pirates or desperate refugees. These were soldiers who knew exactly what they were doing. Jan was having breakfast when the alert came through. He set down his coffee and looked at the red warning flashing across his tablet. As captain of New Jeju Colony, he was responsible for 50,000 people who had made their homes on this frontier world. Most of them were farmers, engineers, and families looking for a fresh start far from crowded Earth. The alert was from Subin, an intelligence analyst at the Council headquarters. She had been tracking the unknown ships that had destroyed Deho's diplomatic vessel 3 days ago. Hyun had known Deho from their academy days. Good man, smart man. If someone had killed him without even talking first, that meant something had changed in the galaxy. "Captain Hyun," Subin's voice came through the communication channel. "I need you to start evacuation procedures now." "What's happening?" "The species that attacked the Feln colonies and killed Deho, they're called the Vrin. I've been analyzing their movements and it's not random expansion. They're clearing a path through Council space and your colony is directly in their route." Hyun pulled up the star maps. She was right. New Jeju sat exactly where the Vrin would pass if they kept moving in the same direction. "How long do we have?" "Maybe 2 weeks. Maybe less. They move faster than anything we've seen before. I'll start evacuations immediately." "What about defense?" There was a pause on the other end. "Hyun, the Vrin don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. Every world they've touched is empty now. Not destroyed, just empty. They take everything. Every person, every resource, every trace that anyone ever lived there." Hyun felt ice in his veins. "I understand. I'll get my people out." The evacuation was chaos, but organized chaos. Hyun had run drills for this, though he had never expected to actually need them. Transport ships arrived from nearby systems. Families packed what they could carry and left everything else behind. Children cried, not understanding why they had to leave their homes. Parents tried to be brave. Jiwoo's fleet sent escort vessels to protect the transports. Hyun watched from the command center as ship after ship lifted off, carrying his people to safety. But not everyone would go. 2,000 volunteers stayed behind with him, mostly veterans who remembered when humanity still knew how to fight. "We can't stop them," Hyun told the volunteers who gathered in the main hall. "But we can slow them down. Give the transports more time to get clear." Nobody argued. They all knew the cost. They had chosen to pay it anyway. The Vrin arrived on the 13th day. Hyun watched their fleet drop out of hyperspace and felt his heart sink. There were so many of them. Hundreds of ships, each one bristling with weapons. They moved in perfect formation, like a machine rather than a military force. All defensive batteries fire at will, Hyun ordered. New Jeju's defenses were never meant to fight a real war. They were meant to deter pirates and handle small threats. Against the Vryn fleet, they were like throwing stones at a mountain. But the volunteers fought anyway because that's what you did when everything else was gone. The Vryn didn't rush. They systematically destroyed every defense platform, every weapon emplacement, every ship that rose to challenge them. They were efficient and cold. No anger, no passion, just professional extermination. Hyun opened a channel to Jiwoo's command ship, which was racing toward New Jeju but was still hours away. "Commander, you're not going to make it in time." "I know." Jiwoo's voice was tight with fury and grief. "Hold on, Hyun, just hold on." "I need you to do something for me," Hyun said, watching the Vryn ships enter orbit above his colony. "Tell Earth what happened here. Tell them we tried peace first. Tell them we gave peace every chance. Hyun, no. Tell them the galaxy needs to remember what humans were before we chose to be better, because maybe it's time to remember." The Vryn began their bombardment. The weapons they used weren't explosives. They were something worse, something that turned the ground to glass and the air to fire. Hyun's last thought was of his daughter, safe now on a transport ship heading to Earth. She would live. That was enough. When Jiwoo's fleet arrived, New Jeju was gone. The entire colony had been turned into a smooth plain of glowing glass that would take centuries to cool. No bodies, no buildings, no trace that 50,000 humans had built a life there. Jiwoo stood on the bridge of her flagship and stared at the screen showing the dead world. Her hands were shaking. In 15 years of service, she had never fired a weapon in anger. Humanity's fleet existed to keep peace, to protect, to deter, not to wage war, but Hyun was right. Sometimes you had to remember what you were before. "Get me a channel to Earth," she said quietly. "Priority 1, direct to the Prime Minister. It's time to open the archives." Back at New Horizon Station, Taemin was compiling everything he had learned about the Vryn. It wasn't much. They were physically strong, adapted to high gravity. Their biology was efficient, built for survival in harsh environments. But that wasn't what scared him. What scared him was how organized they were. Every ship moved in perfect coordination. Every attack was calculated for maximum efficiency. The Vryn weren't just invading. They were executing a plan that had probably been centuries in the making. He sent his report to Subin, who forwarded it to the Council. The Council convened another emergency session. Some representatives suggested sending another diplomatic mission. Others wanted to build defenses and wait for the Vryn to stop expanding. "They won't stop," Subin told them, her voice carrying across the great chamber. "I've analyzed every pattern in their movement. They're not expanding, they're eliminating. They want this entire section of the galaxy empty. That includes all of us." "Then what do you suggest?" the council leader asked. "I suggest you let the humans do what they do best. They negotiate. They mediate." "No," Subin said. "That's what they chose to do. It's not what they do best." The council didn't understand. Most species in the galaxy had forgotten what war really meant. They had small conflicts, territorial disputes, trade disagreements, but real war, the kind that consumed entire civilizations, was ancient history to them. Only humanity remembered, because humanity had lived it, survived it, and consciously chosen to put it away. On Earth, Prime Minister Yoon-ji stood before the unified government and announced that the military archives were being opened for the first time in 103 years. The protocols sealed away after humanity joined the Galactic Council were being dusted off and reviewed. "We spent a century proving we could be trusted," she said to the assembly. "We showed the galaxy that humans could choose peace. But peace only works when all sides choose it. The Vryn have made their choice. Now we make ours." She addressed the Galactic Council next, her image broadcast to every world in the Alliance. The other species watched, not really understanding what was about to happen. "We tried diplomacy," Yoon-ji said. "We tried patience and understanding. We tried everything we learned in our century among you. The Vryn answered by killing our people and destroying our homes. So now you're about to see what we were before we learned to be better. We don't want this. We never wanted this, but the Vryn have left us no choice." She paused, her expression sad but determined. "Humans don't start wars, but we will always end them." Admiral Sang-woo had never fought a real battle. He had trained for 30 years, risen through the ranks, commanded fleets in exercises that looked like war but weren't. He knew tactics from history books and strategies from simulations, but he had never watched someone die because of an order he gave. That was about to change. He stood in the military command center deep beneath Seoul, watching as technicians activated systems that hadn't been used since humanity joined the Galactic Council. The room hummed with energy as ancient computers came online, their data intact and waiting. These machines held the collective military knowledge of human history, from ancient Earth battles to the resource wars that nearly ended civilization. "Admiral, all systems are active," a technician reported. "We have full access to the archives." Bora entered the room carrying a stack of physical files, the kind nobody used anymore except for the most sensitive information. She was the chief military historian, a woman who had spent her career studying wars that ended before she was born. Now her knowledge was suddenly very relevant. "These are the final war protocols from 2291, she said, spreading the files across the main console. "The last time humanity fought a total war. The resource wars almost destroyed us, but we learned things. Terrible things. Things we promised never to use again. And now?" Sang-woo asked. "Now we use them to save lives instead of ending them." Ji-woo arrived from orbit, her face drawn and tired. She had barely slept since watching New Jeju turn to glass. The image haunted her every time she closed her eyes. "Hyun and 2,000 volunteers gone in minutes. The Prime Minister has given approval," Ji-woo announced to the command staff. "I'm taking overall command of military operations. Admiral Sang-woo will lead the home fleet. We're converting every available resource to war production." One of the younger officers raised his hand hesitantly. "Commander, we don't have war production. We make civilian ships and peaceful technology." "We're about to remember how to make something else," Ji-woo said. She pulled up the schematics from the archives. "These are the designs for weapons platforms, assault carriers, and strike fighters. They're old designs, but they work. And we're going to build them faster than anyone thinks possible." Across human space, the transformation began. Civilian shipyards received new orders. Factories that made cargo haulers started producing warships instead. The designs were centuries old, but the technology was current, creating weapons that combined ancient human tactical thinking with modern engineering. It was like watching a sleeping giant wake up and remember it was strong. Taemin watched the changes from his research station and felt a strange mix of fear and pride. He had grown up in the peaceful era, never imagining he would see humanity at war. But as he studied his data on the Vrin, he realized his research might be the key to stopping them. "Their biology is their weakness," he explained to Ji-woo during a secure call. "The Vrin are adapted to high gravity and low oxygen environments. Our standard atmosphere is actually toxic to them over long periods. They need their ships to survive in our space, and so if we destroy their ships, they can't occupy the worlds they conquer. They can only strip them and move on. It's why they leave everything empty. They can't stay." Ji-woo smiled grimly. "Good. Then we know where to hit them." The first real test came at Taeyang Station, a mining colony near the frontier. The Vrin fleet approached expecting easy prey like all the others. Instead, they found Ji-woo's rapid response fleet waiting in ambush. The Vrin had never faced an enemy that fought back with real skill. The other council species had weak militaries, forces designed for peace rather than war. But humans were different. Humans had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing each other before they finally stopped. Ji-woo's ships didn't line up for formal battle like the Vrin expected. They came from multiple directions, using the asteroid field for cover, hitting supply ships and communication vessels instead of fighting the main fleet head-on. It was asymmetric warfare, guerrilla tactics adapted for space combat. The Vrin fleet tried to adjust, but they were fighting an enemy that thought differently. Human tactics didn't follow the logical patterns that worked against other species. Humans were unpredictable, creative, and absolutely ruthless when necessary. When the battle ended 6 hours later, the entire Vrin fleet was destroyed. Not a single ship escaped to report what had happened. Ji-woo walked through her flagship's corridors, looking at the damage they had taken. 12 crew members dead, 40 wounded. Each loss hurt, but they had saved Taeyang Station and its 20,000 inhabitants. "Send a message to all human colonies," she ordered. "The Vrin can be beaten. We know how now." The Galactic Council watched footage of the battle with growing unease. They had never seen humans fight before. The efficiency was frightening, the tactics brutal, the outcome absolute. Some species began to wonder if they had ever really known humanity at all. They were always this capable? The Krell ambassador asked Daeho, who had survived his escape pod and recovered from his injuries. Yes, Daeho said quietly. We just chose not to be. There's a difference between being unable to fight and being unwilling to fight. And now we're willing. Youngsu was a civilian specialist in artificial intelligence, someone who had designed traffic control systems and logistics programs. Now he worked in a secure bunker, programming combat AI that could predict enemy movements and coordinate attacks across entire star systems. The AI he created was based on ancient military algorithms combined with modern processing power. It could analyze a battlefield and suggest tactics faster than any biological mind, running thousands of scenarios per second to find the perfect strategy. It's like the AI is thinking like a human soldier from the Resource Wars, Youngsu explained to Sang-woo. Aggressive, adaptable, always looking for the advantage. Can it win battles? It can help us win. The final decisions are still yours, Admiral. We learned that lesson the hard way during the Resource Wars. AI can advise, but humans must command. The Vryn continued their advance, but now they faced organized resistance. Human fleets appeared where the Vryn didn't expect them. Supply lines that should have been safe were ambushed. Communication networks were hacked and disrupted. The Vryn war machine, so efficient against peaceful species, began to struggle. HFY commanded one of the first new strike carrier groups, a fleet of small, fast ships designed to hit hard and disappear. Her tactics were based on ancient naval warfare from Earth's oceans, adapted for the vastness of space. She would strike at Vryn positions, destroy critical targets, and vanish before the enemy could respond. We're not trying to fight fair, she told her pilots. We're trying to win. Fair fights are for sports. War is about making the enemy lose. Her raids became legendary. The Vryn learned to fear the sudden appearance of human strike carriers, never knowing when or where they would attack next. It was psychological warfare combined with physical destruction, wearing down the enemy's will to fight. Minho worked in a military research facility, designing weapons specifically to counter Vryn technology. He studied captured enemy equipment and found ways to exploit its weaknesses. His greatest achievement was a weapon that targeted the Vryn ship's life support systems, making them uninhabitable without destroying the ships themselves. We can capture their vessels intact, he explained to the military leadership. Learn from them, understand them, turn their own technology against them. As weeks passed, the war shifted. The Vryn were no longer advancing. They were defending, trying to hold what they had taken. Human forces pushed back, reclaiming empty worlds and establishing defensive positions. The galaxy watched in amazement as humanity demonstrated something most species had forgotten existed. Total war. Complete commitment. The absolute determination to win at any cost. But Jiwoo made sure her forces followed strict rules. No civilians were targeted. Captured Vryn were treated according to interstellar law. Occupied worlds were liberated, not conquered. Humanity was remembering how to fight, but they hadn't forgotten why they chose peace. We end this war, Jiwoo said during a strategic planning session, but we end it the right way. We're not becoming monsters to defeat monsters. We're proving that humans can fight with honor even when we fight without mercy. The pulse wave spread outward from the Vryn command center at the speed of light, invisible but devastating to their military network. Every ship, every weapon platform, every communication relay connected to the central command node went silent. 3,000 Vryn warships suddenly found themselves alone, without orders, without coordination, without the unified intelligence that had made them so dangerous. Jiwoo watched from the Indomitable as the enemy fleet began to drift. Ships that had been moving in perfect formation now wandered aimlessly. Some tried to continue fighting, but they were individuals now, not part of a greater whole. And individuals, no matter how strong, couldn't stand against the organized human forces. All fleet groups, this is Commander Jiwoo. The enemy command network is down. Press your advantage. Disable their ships when possible, destroy them when necessary. We're ending this today. Across 42 star systems, human fleets moved in for the final push. The battles were still dangerous, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. Without coordination, the Vryn couldn't adapt to human tactics. They couldn't pool their resources or support each other. They were just targets. HFY strike carriers swept through system after system, taking advantage of the chaos. Her pilots reported that many Vryn ships were trying to retreat, but there was nowhere to go. Every route of escape led to another human fleet. Commander, we're receiving signals from some Vryn vessels, her communications officer reported. They're trying to surrender. Accept their surrender, HFY ordered. But keep weapons locked on them. We're not taking chances. It was the first time any Vryn had tried to communicate with the humans. For months they had been silent, answering all attempts at contact with violence. Now, with their command network destroyed and their fleets defeated, they finally wanted to talk. On the Vryn capital world, Daeho and the surviving soldiers fought their way back to the extraction point. Half the team was gone, killed in the brutal fighting inside the command center, but they had completed the mission. The pulse weapon had worked perfectly. Sang-Woo sent every available shuttle to extract them. The Vryn ground forces were in disarray, not sure whether to keep fighting or surrender. Some continued to attack, but their hearts weren't in it anymore. They had lost, and they knew it. Back on the Indomitable, Daeho collapsed into a chair on the bridge, exhausted and wounded. Jiwoo looked at him and saw not just a diplomat anymore, but a soldier who had done what was necessary. You did well, she said quietly. I watched people die today. Good people following my orders. I know. I've been watching people die for 3 months. It never gets easier. How do you keep going? By remembering why we fight. We're not doing this for glory or conquest. We're doing this to protect the people who can't protect themselves. That's worth the cost. Young-Soo's combat AI was analyzing the battle results in real time. Commander, we've achieved total victory in all 42 systems. Enemy losses are estimated at 91% of their fleet. Our losses are 38%. The AI recommends we consolidate our forces and prepare for the occupation phase. 38%. Jiwoo closed her eyes briefly. That meant thousands of human lives lost, thousands of families that would receive terrible news. The cost of victory was steep even when you won. Begin consolidation, she ordered. And send a message to the remaining Vryn forces. Tell them we're willing to discuss surrender terms. The message went out across all channels, broadcast in every language the humans had learned. It was simple and direct. This war is over. You have lost. Surrender now and we will treat you fairly. Continue fighting and we will end you. For 12 hours there was no response. Human forces held their positions, weapons ready but not firing. They had proven they could destroy the Vryn. Now they would prove they could show mercy. Finally, a communication came through. It was a Vryn commander, speaking in broken but understandable galactic standard. We surrender. All forces, complete. What are your terms? Jiwoo took a deep breath. This was the moment that would define what came next. Humanity could be brutal victors, taking revenge for New Jeju and all the other losses, or they could be the people they had chosen to become over the past century. Your terms are these, Jiwoo said, her voice carrying to every Vryn ship and every human vessel. All Vryn military forces will disarm immediately. You will withdraw from all occupied territories. You will return any resources or technology taken from other species. You will submit to monitoring by human peacekeeping forces for a period of no less than 20 years. During this time, you will learn to be part of the Galactic Council as equals, not conquerors. She paused, then added, and you will be given the chance to rebuild your civilization as a peaceful species. We don't want to destroy you. We want you to choose to be better, the way humanity chose to be better. But if you ever threaten the galaxy again, we will end you permanently. That's not a threat. It's a promise. The Vryn accepted the terms without argument. They had no choice, and they knew it. Human forces began the occupation, establishing monitoring stations and disarming the remaining Vryn military. It was a massive undertaking, requiring thousands of personnel and months of work. Timon and his research team worked with the Vryn to understand their culture and biology better. What they learned was surprising. The Vryn weren't naturally aggressive. They had been driven to expansion by overpopulation and resource scarcity on their original worlds. Their rigid hierarchy was a survival adaptation, not a choice. They were desperate, Taemin explained to Jiwoo. They thought the only way to survive was to take what they needed from others. They didn't understand that the galaxy would have helped them if they had just asked. So we teach them, Jiwoo said. We show them there's another way. The war officially ended 72 hours after the final battle. The Galactic Council convened to discuss what had happened and what came next. Representatives from 40 species gathered, looking at humanity with a mixture of gratitude, fear, and respect. Prime Minister Yoon-ji addressed them, her image broadcast across the galaxy. The Vryn War is over. Humanity has fulfilled its promise. We ended the threat. But I want to be very clear about something. She paused, making sure every species was listening. We didn't want this war. We tried everything to avoid it. We sent diplomats, we offered peace, we gave every chance for a different outcome. The Vryn chose violence, and we responded with greater violence. That's what happens when you force humans to fight. But now the fighting is done. We could keep our military at full strength. We could use our weapons to dominate the galaxy. We could become the very thing we just defeated. But we won't, because humans don't want to rule. We want to live in peace as we have for the past century. However, and her voice became harder, never forget what you saw. We gave you a century of peace because we chose to be better. We stopped the Vryn because we chose to remember what we were. If anyone else threatens this galaxy, they will learn the same lesson the Vryn learned. Humans don't start wars, but we always end them. The council chamber was absolutely silent. Every species understood the message. Humanity was returning to being peacekeepers and mediators, but they were no longer seen as soft or weak. They were lions choosing to be gentle, not because they couldn't be fierce, but because they preferred not to be. Over the following months, human military forces began to demobilize. The massive fleets built during the war were scaled back. Warships were converted back to peaceful purposes. Soldiers returned to civilian life, carrying the memories of what they had done and what they had seen. Jiwoo resigned her position as Supreme Commander and returned to leading the regular defense fleet. She was older now, tired, carrying scars that weren't all physical, but she had done what was necessary, and she had done it without losing herself. Daeho returned to diplomatic work, but he was different too. He had seen both sides of humanity now, the peaceful and the warlike. He understood that both were necessary. Peace without the ability to defend it was just waiting to be conquered. Hyun's daughter, now grown, returned to the site of New Jeju. The glassed plain had cooled enough to walk on. She placed a memorial there, carved from earthstone listing the names of everyone who had died defending the colony. Above the names, a simple inscription. They chose peace first. The Vryn began their long process of rehabilitation. Under human supervision, they dismantled their military hierarchy and started building a more democratic society. It wasn't easy, and there were setbacks, but slowly they changed. Some Vryn even joined the Galactic Council as junior members, learning how to be part of a community instead of conquerors. Sang-woo wrote a detailed history of the war, documenting every battle, every decision, every sacrifice. The document was sealed in the military archives alongside all the other records of human warfare. Future generations would be able to read it and understand what their ancestors had done. Why seal it? Bora asked him. Why not let everyone read it? Because war should never be glorified, Sang-woo said. It should be remembered, studied, and learned from, but never celebrated. We won because we were better at war than the Vryn. But that's not something to be proud of. It's something to be grateful we never have to do again. The war had been going for 3 months when Jiwoo called her senior commanders together for a strategic conference. They met on the warship Indomitable, humanity's new flagship built from the archived designs of the Resource Wars era. The ship was a monster of metal and weapons, nothing like the peaceful vessels humans had flown for the past century. We've stopped the Vryn advance, Jiwoo began, studying the holographic map of the conflict zone. We've reclaimed 17 worlds they emptied. But stopping them isn't enough. We need to end this. Sang-woo leaned forward, his face showing the exhaustion of constant combat operations. The Vryn home cluster is here, 42 star systems deep into their territory. It's heavily defended. They've pulled back their fleets to protect it. How heavily defended? Asked Haewon. Our intelligence suggests 3,000 warships plus orbital defense platforms around every major world. It's a fortress. The room fell silent. 3,000 ships was more than humanity had faced in any single battle. Even with their superior tactics and technology, the numbers were daunting. Young-Soo's fingers danced across his tablet, feeding data into his combat AI. The AI suggests a coordinated strike. Not one massive fleet, but 40 separate attacks happening simultaneously across all their systems. Divide their forces, overwhelm their command structure. That's impossible, one of the admirals objected. We'd need perfect timing across dozens of light years. One mistake and entire fleets could be destroyed. It's only impossible if we think like other species, Jiwoo said. But we're human. We invented synchronized warfare. We perfected it during World War II, refined it in the resource wars. This is what we do. Tae-min joined the conference via hologram from his research station. His team had been analyzing captured Vrin prisoners, learning everything they could about the enemy. I've discovered something important. The Vrin have a rigid command hierarchy. Every ship reports to a central command node. Disrupt that node and their entire fleet loses coordination. Where is this node? Jiwoo asked. On their capital world deep underground. It's protected by their best defenses. But if we could take it out, their 3,000 ships become 3,000 individual targets. Jiwoo finished. No coordination, no unified strategy. Just confusion. Minho had been quietly listening, but now he spoke up. I can create a weapon that would work. It's based on electromagnetic pulse technology from the old archives, but adapted for Vrin systems. We'd need to deliver it directly to the target. No margin for error. So we need to fight through their entire fleet, reach their capital world, and plant a weapon at their command center, Sang-woo summarized, while simultaneously attacking all 42 systems to prevent them from reinforcing the capital. Yes, Jiwoo said simply. That's the craziest military operation I've ever heard. Probably, but it will work. The planning took 2 weeks. Every detail had to be perfect. 40 fleet groups were assembled and given precise coordinates and timing. Each group had a specific target, a specific objective. Youngsu's AI calculated the optimal routes and attack patterns. Minho's engineers built the pulse weapon and tested it 100 times to ensure it would work. Daeho, now recovered from his injuries, volunteered to go with the strike team that would deliver the weapon. I started this by trying to talk to them. Let me finish it by helping to stop them. Jiwoo wanted to refuse, but she saw the determination in his eyes. He needed this. They all did. You'll be with Sang-woo's group. The Admiral will get you to the target. The other Galactic Council species watched humanity's preparations with mixed feelings. Some were grateful that humans were protecting the galaxy. Others were terrified by how efficient and ruthless the human war machine had become. A few wondered if humanity would return to being peaceful after the war ended, or if they had awakened something that couldn't be put back to sleep. Bora addressed these concerns in a presentation to the Council. Humanity's history is full of wars. We fought each other for thousands of years. We nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times, but we always came back from the edge. We always chose to rebuild rather than finish the destruction. That's what makes us human. Not the fighting, but the choosing to stop fighting. Can you promise that? The Council leader asked. Can you promise humanity will return to peace after this war? No, Bora said honestly. I can't promise what humanity will choose. But I can tell you what we've always chosen before, and I believe we'll choose it again. On the day of the attack, Jiwoo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and looked at the faces of her crew. They were scared but determined. They knew the risks. They knew some of them wouldn't come home. But they also knew that stopping the Vrin would save billions of lives across the galaxy. All fleet groups report ready, the communications officer announced. Youngsu, is the AI ready? Yes, Commander. All tactical calculations are complete. The timing window is 17 seconds. If we launch the attacks within that window, the Vrin won't be able to coordinate a response. 17 seconds. Jiwoo had led naval operations before, but never anything this precise. One group launching early or late could doom the entire plan. All groups, this is Commander Jiwoo. In 60 seconds we begin the final operation against the Vrin. You all know your missions. You all know what's at stake. Humanity didn't want this war, but we'll finish it. The Vrin thought we were weak because we chose peace. Show them what humans can do when we choose war. She paused, then added more softly. Remember Hyun, remember New Jeju, remember everyone we've lost. Fight for them. Fight for everyone we'll save. And come home safe, the countdown began. 40 fleet groups across dozens of light years synchronized their clocks. Thousands of human ships powered up their weapons and engines. Tens of thousands of crew members took their positions and prepared for battle. 10 seconds. 5 seconds. 1 second. Execute, Jiwoo ordered. Across 42 star systems, human fleets dropped out of hyperspace in perfect coordination. The Vrin sensors detected them simultaneously, overwhelming their command network with too much information at once. Just as Tae-min had predicted, the Vrin immediately called for reinforcements from every system. But there were no reinforcements to send. Every system was under attack. The Vrin fleet, so powerful when concentrated, was now divided into 42 separate groups, each facing a well-planned human assault. The battles were intense and brutal. Human ships took heavy damage and many were destroyed, but the tactics worked. HFY strike carriers hit supply depots and communication arrays. Youngsu's AI predicted Vrin movements and adjusted human formations in real time. Minho's specialized weapons disabled Vrin ships without destroying them, saving human resources and providing valuable intelligence. Sangwoo's group had the hardest mission, reaching the Vrin capital world. They fought through layer after layer of defenses, losing ships with every light year. The Indomitable took hit after hit, her shields failing and hull breaching, but she kept moving forward. "We're taking too much damage," the tactical officer warned. "We need to withdraw." "Negative," Sangwoo said. "We're finishing this. All remaining ships concentrate fire on the orbital platforms. Clear a path for the landing team." Daeho was in the landing shuttle with a team of soldiers waiting for their chance. He watched through the viewport as human ships sacrificed themselves to create an opening. These weren't just tactics from a manual. These were people choosing to die so the mission could succeed. "Landing path is clear," the pilot announced. "We have maybe 60 seconds before they close the gap." "That's all we need," Daeho said. The shuttle dropped through the atmosphere at speeds that made the hull glow red with heat. Vrin defensive fire tried to track them, but they were moving too fast and too erratically. The pilot was flying like a maniac, dodging and weaving through weapons fire that would have vaporized them instantly. They crashed more than landed, the shuttle skidding across the rocky terrain near the Vrin command center. Daeho and the soldiers emerged, weapons ready. They had one job: get Minho's pulse weapon into the command center and activate it. The Vrin defenders were waiting, but they weren't prepared for human ground tactics. The soldiers moved in coordinated teams, covering each other and advancing despite heavy fire. It was brutal, close-range combat that humanity had perfected over thousands of years of warfare. Daeho carried the pulse weapon, a device no bigger than a briefcase but powerful enough to fry every electronic system within a kilometer. They fought their way into the command center, leaving behind fallen comrades with every meter gained. "Here," Daeho gasped, placing the device at the center of the massive computer complex that controlled the entire Vrin military. Activating now, the pulse weapon hummed, building charge. The Vrin finally understood what was happening and threw everything they had at the human position, but they were too late. The pulse detonated,